I'm doing an informative speech on the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Indians' culture. The Cherokee Indians have survived and thrived through many trials. Their land was taken from them by the United States government, and they were forced to move. They lived off the land and even developed their own alphabet, adopted their own constitution and bilingual newspaper. No one knows exactly how long the Cherokee Indians have lived in western North Carolina. Artifacts have been found that indicated that the people have lived there more than 11,000 years ago. At the end of the Ice Age, in ancient Cherokee tales describe hunts with mastodons that once foraged there. In the 1500s, at the time that the first Europeans settled, the Cherokee Indians were already agricultural people living in villages that consisted of 30 to 60 houses and a large council house. Homes were made with river rock or river cane and circular framework and plastered with mud. In later periods, log cabins became the general rule. The large council houses were located on mounds and were also the site of the sacred fire, which Cherokee had kept burning from time immemorial. By the beginning in the 18th century, the Cherokee Territory had expanded and included part of southwest Virginia, western North Carolina, northwest South Carolina, eastern Tennessee, northern Georgia, and Alabama. Living off the land, the Cherokee Indians used natural resources. Hundreds of species of plants and spices were used for food, medicine, and crafts. Trees provided their main fuel. Weaving fibers, twine, medicinal barks, and framework for coverings of dwellings, while plentiful animals provided food, medicine, and shelter. The Cherokee women held more power than you would think. Cherokee women did most of the farm work. Cherokee men did most of the hunting. They used bows, arrows, fishing poles, and spears. Headmen and chiefs were chosen through the maternal society system controlled by women and governed by their villages and towns. The women controlled marriage and property. Maternal uncles principally reared the children. The social structure of the 7 clans: bird, deer, wolf, blue, long hair, wild potato, and paint. The Cherokee were governed by 2 distinct administrations, one for war and one for religion. These administrations were kept separate and reflected the religious beliefs of the tribe. Religion was not seen as a separate entity, but rather an important physiological base and way of life. The Cherokee viewed the new European lifestyle as means of survival, and this was reflected primarily through education. The new educational system led to the development of the Cherokee syllabary, or alphabet, by the Cherokee made by the man named George Guess, or better known as Sequoyah, in 1821. During the early 1800s, the Cherokee adopted their own government to a written constitution and established their own courts and schools, utilizing the ingenious alphabet of 86 characters. Almost the entire Cherokee Nation became literate within just a few years. By 1830s, the federal government no longer needed the Cherokees as strategic allies, and land speculators wanted the land and plantations for themselves, for the gold that was then found in northern Georgia. In 1838, the government forced the removal of the Cherokee Indians to east to Oklahoma. The Removal Act of 1830 was signed into law by Congress and President Andrew Jackson. Over 16,000 Cherokees were ratified by Congress. Over 16,000 Cherokees began the long march, with 1/4 to half of them dying along what is now known as the Trail of Tears. In North Carolina, these Cherokees who escaped removal, either through North Carolina provision called the Reservation Act of 1819, or by evading the United States Army behind a landless state. An adopted Cherokee named Will Thomas bought the land with the Cherokees' money, held the deeds, and allowed the fugitive Cherokees to live and work the land. The Eastern Band of the Cherokee Indians obtained a corporate charter from the state of North Carolina in 1870. The Cherokee people of western North Carolina are the descendants of those Cherokees who were able to hold on to their land, the land that they owned, and hide out in the hills, and were able to return. Today, the eastern band of the Cherokee Indians, in a sovereign nation of 100 square miles, with more than 13,000 enrolled members, a place where modern people respect and preserve the history of their ancestors. The eastern band of the Cherokee Indians live principally on the Qualla boundary in western North Carolina, commonly called the Cherokee Indian Reservation. The eastern band of Cherokee Indians continue to operate a sovereign nation, providing the prosperity of tribal members. Their home today is the 56,000-acre Qualla boundary in western North Carolina, adjacent to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. That's all I have. Thank you.
Very nicely done.
Good job.